What's up guys, my name is iMissTooMuch and I've recently been given access to Google's Project Stream, and it's basically a computer that they own that plays a game for you and streams it to your computer, which you can submit input and it sends you back the output. All this is done through Google Chrome using it as a thin client, and it's really nothing new. PlayStation Now has been doing this for PS2 and PS3 games since early 2015 or early 2014 if you want to count the closed beta. Steam Link is a local implementation of this service where you own the computer and send it to the TV instead of having it like a third party somewhere else. And remote desktop is basically the same thing, but just for basic desktop computing, and it's been around for decades. VMware Workstation is something I use for school a lot, and it's been around since 1999. And remote desktop protocol was included with Windows XP and maybe before that, but I couldn't find an exact date of when the protocol was actually made. The only new thing is it's slowly becoming viable for gaming. How viable? Well, let's look at that. Before I really want to talk about performance, I want to talk about my own specs. I have a 30x3 connection, which is above the requirements that they need, and it's a wired connection straight to my router, which is sent out of the house, so wherever it needs to go. Sometimes it has issues with passing the check for some reason, but it's beyond the requirements of 15 megabits per second. Now with that being said, they gave us a copy of Assassin's Creed Odyssey for closed beta, which ends in sometime in like January. I don't remember the exact date, but I just know it's in January. And it's playable. The input lag isn't horrible, but it might just be unnoticeable for such a slow game. It'd be really interesting to test this with a more reaction time centric game like Call of Duty or something where like that actually matters and you can actually see it a little bit more. And I have a feeling that like Guitar Hero or something that requires very minute control over your reaction time would just be impossible to play. And a stable connection gives you enough fidelity to get around the game for the most part, and it honestly doesn't look awful. The only issues I've really found is that sometimes the game is blurry because of the bandwidth drops. It typically only lasts a few seconds and becomes fine again. If you want to see like an example of that, just watch any Twitch stream by somebody that's not partner and doesn't have their stuff re-encoded. You'll see just everything kind of look bad for a second and then it gets fine again, but it's not that much of an issue. And plus there's just a general blurriness caused by the encoding. H.264, which is what they use to stream video, simplifies information to take up less space, so smaller details that are far away are often kind of muddied and lost, and it makes it kind of difficult when you need to see things far away or just see small details, but it's usually not that bad. And I noticed that low light scenes are a little tricky because it seems like streamed video tends to always muddy things in low light, which kind of made it annoying to play like when I was going through the caves. And I noticed that the issue wasn't as crisp as playing locally. I noticed it did sound kind of compressed, but it's really a minor issue and you get used to it pretty quickly. And overall, I think it worked for this game, and most of the issues are pretty minor, and it's definitely probably a step up from PlayStation Now and even Steam Link, which is hosted locally and I've had issues with in the past. So what's the future of all this going to be? I think everything will get better up to a point. Bandwidths will slowly start to increase a little bit slower to the United States because we're really bad at increasing bandwidths. Like I can still only get 50 megabits max, but we're slowly rolling out gigabit in the area. And encoding tech will get better and the game will look better with less bandwidth being used, or just the extra bandwidth will be able to use more properly. The only problems I really see is that there's always going to be this kind of constant issue of routing and distance. Routing is always going to cause overhead because it's going to have to pass through multiple routers to get to your house from wherever their data center is. And you can't go faster than the speed of light or speed of electricity through copper. And eventually there will be a point where it'll only get faster by like somehow opening a wormhole and creating a direct connection between the machine and your screen. However, there's a lot of room between now and then, and I think that we'll get to a point where it's definitely passable and usable, but it just won't ever really be perfect. And on the consumer side, I don't really know how well this is going to catch on because it will always require an online connection, and the internet connection has to be fast enough. It might take some places to get up to speed. Like there are places that I know around here that only get 5 megabits that would never be able to use this. And if any link in that goes down, you're going to either have latency while it reroutes the packets, or it's just going to be unplayable if your entire connection goes down. And it makes it really hard to really justify relying completely on for your entire gaming experience. And the other part of the future that's really hard to predict is the Google side, because Google likes to really start and drop projects randomly. I mean, they had Google Reader, SideWiki, Null, Project R, and Google Plus, all things that they kind of started and worked on for a while, and then they just went away one day. So this might be a thing, or we will just never hear about it after the beta ends in January. And if it works, I feel like it'll be probably rolled into one of the next Chromecasts and probably come with a controller and stuff, or it'll be marketed for Chromebooks because they're way too weak to actually play in anything. And one of the major reasons reasons to not buy a Chromebook is you can't actually do anything on it. So I feel like if they brought this service in and made it viable, it would probably be a way for them to sell Chromebooks to people that might be in college and want to play a couple games that decided to get another computer instead. It'll most likely just become something that's extra and not used by many because people will still prefer PC and console because they're always going to look better. They're always going to be able to be played offline. And the whole concept of ownership of the games is a lot more arguable on console, because even though like it's a whole discussion about licenses and stuff and something I want to cover one day, but you have a little bit more of a safer bet of keeping on to the games you actually own the disc of than having to rely on this service that streams it to your computer. And if it doesn't, well, the project's just going to end in January and they'll never bring it up again. There might be like an article saying that they decided to close it down or something, but most likely it'll just be swept on their rug and we'll never hear Project Stream mentioned again. And as for the technology itself, it'll be a niche service for people that don't want consoles or desktops like people on Chromebooks or on cheap laptops, because it's cheaper and easier than buying and maintaining like a console or a PC. But it will never replace either, because it's always going to look worse. It's always going to require an internet connection. You're never going to be able to actually own the games, which is a huge thing for a lot of people that want to sell games back eventually, or just always be able to play them, because if the service goes down then you lose it. There's no mods or no customization or anything like that, because right now it's just, I mean, even if they wanted to, it's just not really that feasible at this point. And there is a small market for it, but it'll never be spoken about in the same vein as mainstream platforms. So that's my opinion for Project Stream. Thank you guys for watching so much, and if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. And if you want to see more stuff like this, subscribe to my channel. I do reviews and other things like that, and this is something I just kind of wanted to cover because I thought it was really interesting. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace out.